Cartoons aren't exclusively for children. Certain Japanese animated productions cross such extreme boundaries that governments worldwide have prohibited them. Ranging from nightmarish circuses to telepathic brutality, these 13 productions were considered too risky for public viewing. Which titles forced their creators into exile? Let's explore them in a different order. 1. Attack on Titan. This widely popular series faced prohibition in China during their 2015 campaign against violent animated content. The show depicting humanity's battle against massive man-eating creatures was among 38 productions blacklisted by Chinese authorities. The narrative follows Eren Jurger and companions struggling to survive in a realm where colossal titans consume people behind protective barriers. The production includes disturbing imagery of humans being devoured and examines concepts of warfare, mass extinction, and human behavior. Chinese officials prohibited Attack on Titan alongside 37 additional animated productions, referencing violent imagery, acts of terror, and violations of societal ethics. The restriction caught many off guard since this series was considerably mainstream, unlike other divisive animations. Authorities expressed concern about violent scenes and their possible impact on younger audiences. Regardless of China's ban, Attack on Titan achieved worldwide success, becoming one of history's most celebrated anime productions. This prohibition demonstrated how nations differ in regulating animated content, with some perceiving danger where others find amusement. 2. Perfect Blue. Satoshi Kon's 1997 mind-bending mystery appeared mild next to blood-soaked productions like Genocyber, yet its mental terror resulted in bans for completely separate motivations. This production, about a singing star's mental collapse, proved excessively authentic, excessively unsettling, and uncomfortably similar to actual celebrity harassment incidents. Mima Kurigo leaves her musical group to chase an acting career. However, a fixated admirer starts following her, while individuals surrounding her begin perishing. As Mima's grasp on truth weakens, the production obscures distinctions between imagination and actuality in manners that genuinely disturbed audiences. Director Khan employed animation methods that rendered the mental deterioration terrifyingly convincing. Chinese authorities prohibited Perfect Blue due to violent depictions and psychological breakdown. Various nations limited it to mature-only presentations. The production's accurate depiction of harassment and mental decline troubled governments in ways that clear fantasy violence didn't. Reviewers reported experiencing psychological disturbance for extended periods following viewing. The production's examination of fame, culture, and media control resonated too strongly with actual tragedies surrounding idol mistreatment in Japan. Unlike other prohibited anime shocking audiences with gore, Perfect Blue faced bans for being excessively psychologically precise. Sellers struggled promoting a production simultaneously praised as brilliant and too disturbing for broad viewership. 3. Violence. Jack, Evil Town. Go Naga's dystopian demon released chaos on screen in manners that repelled even terror enthusiasts. This 1988 original video animation adapted the already intense Violence Jack comics and amplified the savagery to heights that horrified worldwide censors. The Evil Town installment particularly became history's most prohibited anime episode. Located in earthquake-ruined Tokyo, the narrative tracks the enormous demon Violence Jack, wandering through subterranean communities where humanity descended into brutal clans. Evil Town presents a detention facility uprising sequence containing human consumption, body separation, and savagery so lifelike that numerous nations declined airing it. Britain's film board removed 30 seconds, yet still couldn't render it suitable for distribution. European nations prohibited the complete Violence Jack collection after viewing Evil Town. Australia denied classification. Even modified editions were removed from retail locations. The unaltered Japanese edition proved so intense that imported versions became underground trade goods. Manga Entertainment, recognized for distributing edgy material, needed to eliminate minutes of footage before attempting UK distribution. Reviewers labeled it the most savage animated sequence ever created. Director Ichiro Itano stated he aimed to portray dystopian survival without restrictions. Violence Jack gained legendary status among underground anime enthusiasts precisely because viewing it in original form proved nearly impossible. 4. High School of the Dead. This 2010 Undead Outbreak series combined survival terror with provocative material in manners that resulted in Chinese prohibition and extensive censorship elsewhere. The mixture of disturbing violence and suggestive scenes created a complete controversy storm. Students battle to survive an undead invasion. Though the series emphasizes both zombie brutality and female participants in ways making censors uneasy, the production gained notoriety for excessive material, often eclipsing the actual storyline. China prohibited both animated and comic editions in 2015 during a broader campaign against violent and mature material. The series faced heavy censorship across multiple nations, with numerous sequences either removed or modified. Reviewers contended the series prioritized controversy over narrative quality. Despite prohibitions, it achieved massive popularity through underground circulation and online platforms. The controversy emphasized continuing discussions about content regulations and worldwide distribution of anime containing mature subjects. 5. Genocyber Ohara's 1994 digital punk terror became the anime that even Japan temporarily prohibited from broadcast. This 5-installment original video animation about telepathic weapons and business conspiracies contained violence so intense that it violated anime's implicit guidelines about displaying disturbing harm to youngsters. Original versions remain exceptionally scarce because of the initial prohibition. The narrative tracks Elaine and Diana, telepathic siblings whose abilities become exploited by military researchers attempting to develop the supreme biological weapon named Genocyber. When the siblings combine, they transform into an unstoppable power of telepathic devastation that tears through metropolitan areas, literally shredding anyone crossing their path. The opening installment alone presents medical facility sequences with thousands of severed extremities and internal body parts scattered throughout the screen. Japan actually prohibited Genocyber from broadcast transmission following its original distribution. Original videocassette and laserdisc versions became extremely scarce. Collector's pieces commanded thousands. Multiple nations refused importing it whatsoever. The collection proved so divisive that the source comic was terminated after merely 1 volume. Reviewers labeled it unnecessarily violent and pure shock tactics. Even anime enthusiasts who appreciated extreme material found Genocyber challenging to watch. The prohibition was only recently removed, permitting newer audiences to comprehend why this original video animation generated such massive controversy initially. 6. Tokyo Ghoul. Though not prohibited universally, this 2014 series about human flesh-consuming ghouls concealing themselves among regular people got blacklisted by China for motivations extending beyond standard violence worries. The administration feared the series encouraged hazardous actual-world conduct among adolescents. Kenkiki transforms into a partial ghoul following a near-fatal incident, battling to preserve his humanity while requiring human flesh consumption for survival. The series examines concepts of selfhood, prejudice, and endurance in a realm where creatures conceal themselves among ordinary individuals. China prohibited Tokyo Ghoul in 2017, following accounts that adolescents were stitching threads beneath their skin and employing excessive body piercings to replicate characters from the series. The administration referenced both disturbing violence and its possible impact on self-injury conduct. Various additional nations limited it to mature viewership exclusively. The prohibition stretched beyond the animation to comic products and digital material associated with the series. Reviewers contended the prohibitions were excessive responses to isolated occurrences, yet governments worried about imitation conduct among susceptible audiences. Regardless of the controversy, Tokyo Ghoul remained among the most beloved anime series globally, with the forbidden characteristic only enhancing its underground attraction. 7. Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend. Toshio Ma developed the anime that generated countless controversies and essentially invented a complete disturbing subcategory. This 1987 production follows demons, people, and otherworldly beings in a realm where brutality and intimate sequences merge into absolute nightmare material. What originated as a comic became the most notorious mature anime ever developed. The narrative centers on Nagamo, a demon pursuer seeking the Overfiend, a being predicted to merge three realms. However, this isn't your standard champion's quest. The production presents tentacle beings, disturbing transformations, and imagery so intense that most nations declined permitting unaltered editions anywhere near their territories. Ma's original concept was even more extreme than what reached screens. Britain's film board declined classifying it, essentially prohibiting the production completely. Australia designated it refuse classification. Multiple European nations either prohibited it entirely or required reductions so extreme they rendered the production unwatchable. Even within Japan, numerous theaters declined screening it. The controversy transformed it into a massive underground success, generating multiple continuations and copies. Reviewers labeled it the most notorious anime ever created. Maeda himself stated he never anticipated the worldwide panic, yet the forbidden characteristic made it even more desired. Mature film sellers constructed complete business strategies around productions like this one. Presently, locating an unaltered edition still demands serious searching. 8. Kite. This 1998 anime crossed boundaries in manners that resulted in complete Norwegian prohibition and extensive censorship in other nations. Director Yasuomi Umetsu developed a narrative about a teenage killer that crossed boundaries many believed should never be approached in animation, regardless of creative purpose. Sawa is an orphaned youth trained as a killer by corrupt law enforcement officers who exploit her in every conceivable manner. The production combines explosive battle sequences with profoundly disturbing material involving minors that rendered worldwide distribution nearly impossible. Even modified editions generated massive controversy for their suggestions. Norway prohibited Kite completely under regulations forbidding certain material involving minors. Numerous additional nations either declined distributing it or required reductions so comprehensive they destroyed the narrative progression. Within the United States, extensively modified editions still triggered demonstrations. The divisive sequences proved so troublesome that numerous sellers wouldn't approach the production whatsoever. Reviewers debated whether the production addressed genuine social concerns or exploited them for shock tactics. The animation craftsmanship received praise, yet the material eclipsed any creative advantages. Locating unaltered editions became nearly impossible across most nations. The controversy pursued director Umezu for years, impacting his capacity to secure future project financing. 9. School Days. This 2007 anime modification pushed romantic drama into such disturbing territory that it was removed from Japanese broadcast mid-transmission. The concluding installments proved so unsettling that networks declined airing them, rendering this among the rare anime collections prohibited in its native nation during its original broadcast. Makoto's romantic involvement spirals into fixation, control, and eventually brutality as multiple connections deteriorate into psychological terror. The collection develops from standard romance patterns into genuinely unsettling territory that overturned everything audiences anticipated from the category. Japanese broadcast networks removed the concluding installments from transmission schedules following early airings generated viewer grievances and controversy. China prohibited the complete series for its violent material and concepts. The series was considered excessively violent and psychologically disturbing for broadcast transmission. The concluding installments only became accessible through disc distributions with age limitations. Reviewers characterized the series as a deconstruction of romance anime taken excessively far. The controversy rendered it legendary among anime enthusiasts, yet also proved how far collections could proceed before even Japan's comparatively lenient broadcasting regulations established boundaries. 10. Angel Cop. This 1989 digital punk mystery became notorious not merely for its intense brutality, but for political material so divisive that the English adaptation entirely rewrote significant storyline components. Director Ichiro Itano developed a production that insulted multiple governments for motivations beyond standard anime material worries. Located in future Japan, Special Law Enforcement Officer Angel Mikawa battles communist rebels while discovering a scheme involving foreign control of Japanese governance. The original Japanese edition incorporated explicit conspiracy claims targeting particular ethnic communities, while the English adaptation substituted these components with generic Americans to prevent international conflicts. The original Japanese edition faced prohibition across multiple nations for its political material and conspiracy claims. The English adaptation needed to entirely rewrite significant storyline components to achieve any worldwide distribution whatsoever. Various European nations declined importing either edition. Even extensively modified distributions encountered censorship for their intense brutality and political suggestions. The collection became a devoted favorite among anime enthusiasts precisely because viewing it unaltered proved so challenging. Reviewers labeled it politically inflammatory and unnecessarily violent. The controversy stretched beyond standard anime censorship into actual diplomatic worries about international connections. These productions didn't merely cross boundaries, they completely destroyed them. From creators who invested fortunes developing unmarketable art to governments frantically attempting to distance them from citizens, these 13 anime represent animation's most extreme, most hazardous experiments. Which one do you believe crossed excessively far? Or should artistic expression have zero limitations whatsoever? Share your most divisive opinion in the responses, because this is precisely the type of discussion that maintains these prohibited productions relevant after decades.